Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. As I addressed in the first video today, not everybody watches all the same videos. I want to give my utmost amount of thoughts and prayers to my audience out there that has family, whether it be in Russia or Ukraine, or anyone that is currently being displaced or dealing with the horrific events that are happening today. Nothing we talk about, or I should say everything we talk about, pales in comparison to that. I feel foolish making content today. Taking some time away from watching the news, I'm able to, discuss different topics here. So hopefully you guys can maybe take that time to just really offer grace and love to the people that are out there that are going through some issues, as we are seeing what appears to be the first level of warfare since like the late 1930s in parts of Europe. And again, I'm no expert, and there's been other issues since then. But boy, it is looking horrible out there. And all we try to do on this channel is discuss topics as we see them through the lens of Bachelor, and then veer off into irreverent topics or other social issues. That's all we talk about. That's what makes me interested, and I got to go with what brings me to my highest frequency level and hope that you either relate to that or you just don't want to watch it, in which case catch me on the stupid stuff. But in this conversation, we've been talking about Demi sort of coming out or realizing she is autistic. And this is her first interview since the diagnosis, so we're going to get right into that. We made this video last week saying I'm autistic. She talked about all the different evaluations she's had and how she figured this out. And people have responded with tons of support, but then others have literally said this is a slap in the face to me, who has a very autistic child. And what we know, or we should know as we learn, is that there's a huge spectrum of how people cope and deal with knowing what they have and the blueprints within their brain and body, and how they kind of can navigate life through that. So it's the more information we can have, the better. Sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. Take a shot if you had that on the old Dave Neal bingo charts. So here's the first interview she's given. I'll play it. It's just 2 minutes long. It leaves a lot out, and then after, we're going to cover what Demi had to say. I'm going to cover some other things people have said, and we will discuss some other aspects of what you guys have said with your diagnosis. First, before I play this interview, and it's a good one, and it's a good conversation to have, I'm going to play 2 voicemails I received from our community about their autism diagnosis. Let's go to the first one right now.
Hello, I'm Trevor Shapiro, and I saw the video of how Bachelor was diagnosed with autism, and I'm diagnosed with autism myself. I'm calling from Monterey, California, and it's been a lifelong struggle with me, and I do have frustrations in my life, especially with the social and romantic side of things, and it's just comforting to know that someone is just being diagnosed with autism, and they can understand and feel my struggles. I really appreciate hearing about this now. Thank you, and have a great day.
And I appreciate you calling in, and people left comments saying, as a fellow person with autism, I'd like to congratulate Demi on finding out and sharing her new discovery with everyone. Congrats. Congrats on discovering a part of your body that now you understand how you're different and can operate, and, all of that jazz, right? But of course, that's never met on the internet with people understanding. Layla says, someone says, you make it sound like it's a good thing to have autism. Any serious case of autism is very debilitating. And to reply to Mark, I don't think that person made it sound like it's a good thing at all. I think that person championed someone learning something about themselves to help better them, given the situation and the tools that they have in life. Layla said, what's your point? We should feel sad that we exist? Let me put it to you this way. We exist as we are. There's a choice between knowing and not knowing. I choose knowing, and that knowledge is something to celebrate. And I've had people comment and say, well, sometimes it's better to not know. And I say to everyone else, to each their own. But if someone had, like I made this analogy earlier on the Patreon, which we're recording this live from the Patreon. There have been, imagine if you've got headaches 3 days a week since you were 6 years old, and you go, you know what? I guess I got to just live with these headaches. And then finally a doctor goes, oh, actually, if you just take this Aleve, you'll get rid of those headaches. And you go, why didn't I know this when I was a kid? I wish I knew this. This would have saved me from so many tough situations. Now, obviously, it's not as simple as taking a pill to overcome a headache, but it's a similar thought process that having the blueprints to your brain and your soul and how everything works is a good thing for helping you navigate a world that's not in your control, whether it be through stimulus that exists out there, relationships. Who doesn't want to find love? We talk about Bachelor. We talk about this community. Everyone here watches the show in part because of people, idiots on the show. Not her specifically, but the idiots, Clayton, that are trying to find love. Don't we want that for people to experience that transcendental joy that you feel from connecting with others? Well, if you realize that it can be hard, we talked to our friend Layla here in the comment section. She says she was diagnosed with as autistic and now has a medical stimulant, and I'm able to keep on top of my life. I don't miss appointments. I'm not as late. It's improved her libido. Congratulations to her.
Oh my
You know what I mean? Absolutely. More on autism. And these are good anecdotal stories that we're hearing from people in our community. I know my limits. I don't push myself into uncomfortable situations. I learned to push myself too hard as a kid. It was detrimental, constantly pushing towards burnout. And of course, we know that women aren't necessarily diagnosed in the same way men are or have not been diagnosed. So while they think they were raised, being a perfectionist or being certain things, they realize they weren't diagnosed because they didn't present the same way that men might have. She says, I stim now, which relieves pressure. I treasure my time alone more. If people accept me the way I am, that's great. If not, I don't bother with them. I don't feel bad for being me anymore. So let's go to the next voicemail. I'm going to play the Demi thing. I'm not milking it, but there's a lot to get to before I play Demi's convo. And let's go to this next voicemail here. I played this earlier on a live stream, but it's so important to hear just a piece of this convo.
Hi, Dave. It's Elizabeth calling from Southeast Pennsylvania. I am not in a Wawa right now. Surprise, surprise. I just turned on. I just, was watching YouTube, and your thumbnail for Demi's video about her being autistic came up, and holy shit. Sorry. My jaw hit the floor, and not in just because I'm so excited. The timeliness, it's just it's very good for me. In the sense that I too have been just diagnosed with autism, not officially. I'm waiting on my evaluation because it just takes so long to get evaluated via waitlist. Or I can pay a doctor to do it, but it's just very expensive. So the process has been really hard. But myself was always kind of an outsider in school, very social. So I have some social skills which are very good. So it's obvious why it wasn't picked up on as a kid, but also in the early 2000s when I was growing up, autism was a little boy's disease. It was not something that girls had growing up. So I was put through the ringer. I was put through the process of medication for ADHD, and then that didn't work, and then anxiety and panic diagnosis and medications for that, and that didn't work. And it's just been 20 years of this journey to figure out that I am autistic, and I have meltdowns at work, and it's been so much easier to live my life now that I know that, and I have that to explain to people.
So we talked to Liz and shared this voicemail already, so I'm going to cut you off there, Elizabeth, but I thank you so much for sharing your story. If anyone wants to share theirs, 401-213-9828. This is because someone who operates in a world where people demand perfection. They demand perfection out of these contestants. She says, this is who I am. Let's go to the interview that she gave and then what she said after the interview that wasn't covered here. So very important. Let's have a listen. Right here, play it back.
Demi Burnett.
I didn't think I would ever feel the way that I felt about you.
Opening up about her recent autism diagnosis.
I grew up with the stereotype and the stigma around it. So I was like, oh, I'm not autistic. For the first time in my life, reading stuff that related to how I was feeling, I was like, wait, that's something that I felt that I never could describe.
The 27-year-old making groundbreaking headlines on Bachelor in Paradise.
Christian H. Haggerty.
Will you marry me?
Of course I will.
but first starring as a spirited suitor of Colton Underwood on The Bachelor.
You're so cute.
That mask of being like this, oh my gosh, like I'm so hot, I'm so fun, I'm so this, I'm so that. That is like a personality I created for people to be comfortable around. And, you know, like to be entertained by, to be accepted by.
Behind the bubbly personality on reality TV, Demi explaining how she struggled for years with severe depression and anxiety.
I was just really confused. And I felt like something was wrong with me.
Demi is not alone. She's one of more than 5 million adults in this country estimated to be living with autism spectrum disorder, a developmental disability that can cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges.
It is so different for every individual. There's no one way to be autistic. We're becoming more and more aware of how women may be underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed and very late diagnosed.
At the start of the new year, Demi fought through the embarrassment she says she felt and underwent extensive testing with a neuropsychologist, finally receiving an explanation.
I think that this is going to make me have a better quality of life if I understand that this is my struggle. What I would want to do is help people, absolutely, and let people know that they are not alone.
Experts say there are many
Fantastic.
ways that life can be improved for adults who find out that they have autism spectrum disorder, but there is no one-size-fits-all answer. There is concern and belief in research communities that women and people of color are.
All right, so that's the clip, and of course, Demi. Here's the problem with the. It's traditional media is just dying. It's just dead because they good for them. They make it look fancy with the ticker and this and that, but they didn't. They just cut things out. Demi, do me a favor. I don't care if you come on my channel, but go talk about this in long form. People want to have long form, intensive conversations, and GMA is a good place to start. By getting your message to people that only watch traditional media, but it's not doing your story justice or anyone else out there. On my Good Morning America interview, there was some stuff I said that wasn't aired. I talked about how different autism looks for everyone, how unaffordable testing is, and the difference in men versus women. I talked about my preference of being autistic and not has autism. Wish we could have saw that part of the conversation, Demi. I appreciate you sharing it on your Twitter. And of course, also the conversation about having, Medicare for all it's a travesty that, people have to decide between like breaking even, eating food, and maybe, Marianne Williamson says it's not healthcare, it's sick care, or whatever she calls it, because it's like our healthcare system is so flawed that we only cover whatever issues are coming to the surface. Whatever boils to the surface is all we can afford to cover, and this is a struggle that she's had her whole life. Her final tweet was, all I want is for people to do their research and understand how autism presents differently in everyone. It isn't just what you think autism looks like. I feel what I wanted to get across with that interview was left out. And just so you know, calling it disorder can be offensive. So good for her for sharing that. Adam said a lot of the diagnoses are self-diagnosed. My son's severe autistic stories like this are slaps to my son's face. You want to see autism? Spend a day with my son and it'll close a lot of these adult autism cases. And I replied, if your son is autistic, then you'd be familiar with the spectrum of it all. She can still share her own difficulties. Now, I understand the bitterness that comes from some people struggling with this for so long, and then they see some pretty young lady saying, oh, I'm autistic. I understand that may trigger you to feel a certain way, but just understand that just because no amount of sickness is going to make someone else healthy, no amount of poverty is going to make someone else rich, and no amount of this autism measuring contest is going to make it any better for your situation or for others. The fact that Demi's talking about this thing might actually make it better for you, and I reject the idea that you're telling us it's a slap in your son's face. You don't get to say that it's a slap in someone else's face. You can't be offended on someone else's behalf. But I do hope you understand that Demi's now going to be talking about it in a way that shows that clearly it's not just someone saying, I guess I have autism. Chelsea replied, she left some good comments. I finished watching the whole video and this is somehow the best. And again, this isn't a pat on my back. This is just curiosity and thirst for understanding what the hell's going on out there. This is somehow, and I love how she said somehow as if it's surprised that it's coming from some flannel jabroni. This is somehow the best, most accurate and informative commentary video on Demi coming out as autistic I have seen by far. Seriously, almost made me cry. Her interview on Good Morning America wasn't even posted on their YouTube. This was yesterday, so this was before that we saw the Good Morning America interview. So thank you 100 times over. I wasn't diagnosed till 33, so her speaking out and this awareness spread has been so helpful and big. And I appreciate you, Chelsea, for sharing your story with us. And for everyone else that is experiencing in one way or another this story, we know when we talked to Layla on the Patreon, she mentioned that it's improved. Getting her diagnosis has improved her relationship. And for all those that are out there experiencing autism or know someone who is close to you, just remember, we're all trying the best with the information we have. If someone's coming off like an asshole or coming off like they don't care about you or they have a one-track mind or they're hyper-focused or this or that, just understand, we've all got different blueprints to how we make it work. We're all united vicariously through a gene code that doesn't see borders and boundaries and Ukraines and Russias and West and East. We all come from this place that we don't know what it is. I've been called anti-Christian and I've been called atheist and I've been called all these different things for challenging opinions we all have on structured settings that as humans do their best to describe what it is we're experiencing. But whether it be an external structure like a mosque or a cathedral or an internal structure like the blueprints that help us navigate this crazy world, we need to understand we don't know what we don't know and have empathy for those that are trying to figure it out and understand how they can make the world a better place starting from within. I hope you guys can challenge yourselves and your family and your friends and your support groups to think that way, to think, hey, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I should have a little bit more grace for other people out there, even if they look or sound differently than I do. And that's the place I think we're going to be on our channel, challenging the traditional mindsets we have for what hopefully is a greater understanding of how we all tick. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to leave a voicemail if you want, 401-213-9828. We'll continue to cover this conversation. And congrats to Demi out there. We appreciate you.